Hi everyone, it's James here. Welcome back to Squeeze Fan TV. Bit of a controversial subject, this video. I'm going to be throwing a question out there at you all. And the question is this: should Glenn Tilbrook have sung Tempted? Now, I'm not coming at this with a specific viewpoint or a particular angle. I will just share a couple of experiences or thoughts. My memory of hearing this song for the first time is incredibly clear. I can remember playing the record on my dad's big hi-fi, which I always did. The first time I played Squeeze albums would always be on my dad's set because he had a really good stereo. And, listening to Inquintessence, which is fantastic. It's got that Glenn and Chris unison vocal. Going into Someone Else's Heart, which is interesting. That does have Paul on vocals, but Chris is the main singer. And then all of a sudden, Tempted comes on, this kind of slow-burning soul song, really. Although back then I wouldn't have known what soul even was, really, And then this voice comes out, this just this big Paul Carrack voice, And I don't know whether I really liked Tempted as a song back then. I just felt, because Jules Holland had been such a big part of Squeeze. He'd always been there, a very distinctive visual presence. I can remember actually buying this record from the shop and looking at the cover in the shop and going, there's something wrong with this picture. What's wrong with this picture? And I was thinking, there's somebody missing, or there's something different. And my eyes drifted across and I thought, who the bloody hell's that, Jules not there, and there's this guy. Who is it? Who is that? And then on the back of the LP, on this album, under each song, it tells you who sang which song. So I could see it said Paul on lead vocals, and it did really throw me. And I grew to like the song, and over time, probably I grew to sort of love the song. I mean, the versions that Glenn used to do back in the 90s were phenomenal. They were really fantastic. Completely different. Obviously, Glenn sang them in his style. And we all know the story, it was Costello's idea in the studio. Why don't we let Paul have a go at this one? And the original version that Glenn had sung, I think he described it as sounding like bad ELO. And I have heard that version, and it's not great, but by the same token, it sounds like maybe a version which they hadn't really gone to too much trouble over. Almost sort of like maybe a bit of a demo quality to it. Anyway, so we know how history transpired. Paul ends up singing Tempted. It becomes not a big hit in America, but it becomes a big radio hit for a lot of North American Squeeze fans, or even just, casual listeners. It becomes the song maybe most indelibly associated with the band. And yet, it's sung by Paul Carrack, who only really stayed for this one album. Obviously, he came back later during the Some Fantastic Place era, and then sang another song then, didn't they? Loving You Tonight. But what sort of went wrong for Squeeze at this point was that they had Paul doing the vocals for the song, but then of course he left the band during the American tour. I think he might have left the band even while the single was out. Crazy. I can see why Chris was annoyed. But in my book, I described Tempted as being a musical cuckoo in the Squeeze nest. It doesn't feel, to me, even at this distance, even though I like the song now, there's something about it which doesn't quite sort of gel for me. And I think it is just that musically, stylistically, it's quite different. And you've got the Paul voice on there, which is sort of not really Squeeze, really. This is kind of what might get me into trouble. I know that there's going to be lots of people out there who just absolutely love this song and love the fact that Paul sings it, and I do really like Paul's vocal on it. I'm a big fan of Paul Carrack. I've got some solo stuff by him. I really respect him as a singer, as a songwriter. He's a great guy. I'm definitely not dissing him, but interesting experiment last night. I was playing the CD, and when it got to the end of Someone Else's Heart, I actually skipped Tempted and went straight to Piccadilly, and it really worked. And that's really what gave me the idea for this video. I was even thinking, should Tempted even have been on the record? Having decided to give the song to Paul to sing, maybe it should have been a standalone single. Never been sure it's in the right place on the album, either the third track, I don't know. Try it, just as an experiment. Try listening to your copy of East Side Story and skip it and see how it sounds going from Someone Else's Heart straight into Piccadilly. I think it works really well. I don't know. I might get into trouble for this video. We'll see. Have I come to a conclusion? Do I think that Glenn should have sung it? I'm not going to say that, really. I'm going to leave it open-ended, and I've kind of shared what I think without coming down particularly strongly on one side of the fence or the other, but I do have my doubts. I do have my doubts about Tempted, sung by Paul Carrack. I'll leave it at that, with the caveat that obviously it's a great vocal performance and I do really like Paul Carrack. So anyway, I'll stop there. I'll stop digging before I dig myself any further. And I'll say thanks for watching. Do subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. And I'll see you in the next video.